My countrymen, this is Eli Velis Lao Pamatong, President of the Republic of the Philippines. And once again, I have come to share with you very important issues concerning the country and the world community. In my previous recording, I talked about my decision to launch multi-million march against China on July 4 this year, most probably from the World Trade Center or from the US Embassy to Liwasang Bonifacio. I postponed that earlier because of COVID, and I didn't want people to die on the way to freedom. But I think COVID will be with us for a long time because the government is not serious in helping our people out of this pandemic. Duterte, who is a mayor of Davao and a puppet of China, is using COVID or coronavirus as a weapon to destroy the Filipino people, to implement his program to kill 3 million, which he announced earlier. In fact, he said he will kill all the Filipinos. I think what is foremost in his mind is to replace the Filipino race with the yellow race, the Chinese race. He claims that he himself is a Chinese, including Robredo, Leni Robredo. These are Chinese people, at least associated with China. And so the only way, in my mind, to save the Philippines from Chinese control, which has been a long time, going on for a long time, more than 70 years, is to launch march against China, hoping that China will back out. Although I have declared war against China, I don't want really bloodshed if that is possible. But if that is not possible, peaceful means to restore democracy in the Philippines is not possible, then I think we have to go to war. We will try these peaceful demonstrations, which have been tried many times by other countries, and which to a certain extent were successful. In France, in America, in the Philippines, in other countries. We have to resort to marches because it's less bloody. But we have to do it. The price of peace and liberty is high. Liberty and freedom are not free. You have to pay for liberty. You have to pay for freedom. Dili libre ang kagawasan. Hindi libre ang kalayaan. Bayaran mo yan. Bayaran mo yan. You have to pay for it in terms of blood, sweat, tears, and lives. That has been done time and again in the long history of mankind. Peace, independence, freedom, liberties have been nourished by blood and tears. And we have to pay for what is necessary to enjoy freedom and democracy. Anything that's new, or the new chapter of humanity, of mankind, when you enter that new chapter of life, you have to pay for it in terms of blood, sweat, and tears. When a woman enters into adulthood, it is preceded by blood, menstruation, blood. Then, that's the ritual of womanhood. You become a woman. A man has a customary Jewish tradition of shedding blood before he becomes a man. Circumcision, blood, it's a bloody process. When you lose your teeth to give way to a new one, there is blood. It's bloody. When you give birth, birth is preceded by blood. New life is preceded by blood. New set of teeth preceded by blood. Manhood is preceded by blood. It's bloody. It sounds cruel, but there is blood involved. Merong dugo na kailangang ipatulo mo bago kayo ipanganak. Even your husband, when he ejaculates, about 1.2 billion sperms to the woman, only one of the 1.2 billion will be spared, will remain alive, sometimes about 5. But more than 2 billion sperms, they are living organisms, will die. That precedes your birth. There were too many of you when you were released from your father, about 1.2 billion, and only one survived. Many died. Your life was built over the demise of billions of others. You survived. So life is preceded generally by blood, sweat, and tears. Liberty is not free. President Jefferson said, from time to time, the tree of liberty must be nourished by the blood of both patriots and tyrants. It has to be nourished. But again, liberty is not free. Freedom is not free. It says freedom, but it is not free. Independence is not free. You have to pay for it. The peace in the world, peace, kalinaw, kapayapaan, it's not free. Yung First World War, ang resulta doon para manahimik tayo after First World War, 20 million ang namatay. 20 million. Maraming buhay yan. That's about maybe 1/4 of the Filipino people. 20 million. Dugo, luha, pawis. Sure shed to promote peace during the First World War. Yun. Kailangan bayaran ng dugo. Tulinadang dugo. Napakaraming dugo, napakaraming luha para lang mapayapa tayo after First World War. Then, Second World War came. We sacrificed again 75 million. Binayaran ng mankind ng 75 million lives para mapayapa tayo after the Second World War. Madugo. The blood, lives, sweat, and tears of 75 million shed to usher the advent of peace in the world. 75 million namatay. Yung Long March ni Mao Zedong, that's about 12,000 miles. That's from San Francisco to New York, and New York back to San Francisco. That's about 12,000 kilometers. Napakalayo. Yun ang binayad nila. And ang namatay, 70,000 people. The blood of 70,000 people were shed by that march, the Long March. Then it was followed by the ambition of the Chinese leaders to move forward to be the greatest nation in the world community. And 55 million died during the Great Leap Forward of Mao Zedong, 55 million to 70 million died. Iyon ang binayad para sa progress ng China ngayon na parang at par with America. Yung progress na yan, binayaran niyang milyon-milyong buhay ng insect. 55 millions of lives, maybe 100 million, I don't know. The American Civil War, para malibre ang Amerika from England, para may freedom sila, hindi na sila masakop ng England, binayaran yung more than 620,000 lives. Blood, sweat, and tears of those who died, that the others may be free, that the other Americans may live in freedom, breathe in freedom. 620 up ang namatay. Iyon ang dugo sa mga tao ng 620,000. Dugo, pawis, luha, lahat. Sinakripisyo para lang magkaroong independensya ang Amerika sa England. And then, America fought against England, by the way. Nagkamali ako. 6,800 yung namatay against England. Yung sa Civil War, para magkaroon ng kapayapaan ng Amerika, there was a war between North and South America. Ang namatay doon, 620,000. Dami-daming dugo namatay. Pati na yung dapat maging anak at grandchildren doon, wiped out from the face of history, from the memory of the world community. Nawala. Sa Vietnam, 2 million. Both sides, South Vietnam, North Vietnam, 2 million. And binuwis ng mga Vietnamese para magkaroon silang United Vietnam. 2 million. Yung when they tried to fight for the liberation against France, nagbuhos silang dugo ng 400,000 to 1 million. And in 1954, at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, they won. Over the graves of 400,000. And doon, they planted the flag of freedom and independence for Vietnam. The Filipinos, well, the records will show that we paid for our independence. 2 million Filipino lives. The Americans were here, but I think only about 15 to 23 million, 1,000 Americans died. 15 to 23,000 Americans died. 2 million Filipinos shed their lives, sacrificed their lives, shed blood, sweat, and tears, that the Filipino freedom may grow and flower in this land. We sacrifice our citizenship in exchange for independence. The golds in the Baguio mines, they were taken. We took it in stride because of our desire for independence. Iyon ang nangyari. Napakaraming namatay on the altar of freedom and peace. Hindi pwede na hindi bayaran ang kalayaan. Yung dream mo for eternal life, for resurrection, for salvation, bayaran mo rin yan. Yan sa Bible, si Jephthah, pinatay niya yung tanging anak na napakaganda, beautiful daughter, sacrifice to please Jehovah. And si Jehovah, gago, tarantado yun eh. Nag-enjoy si Jehovah na patayin yung anak ni Jephthah. You read the Bible if you doubt me. Although doon sa anak ni Abraham, tinigil si Abraham. Ewan ko anong nangyari ni Jehovah. Pero in the case of Jephthah, patay yung daughter niya. Sinakripisyo. So again, we have to pay for it. In Indonesia, para magkaroon siyang kapayapaan sa abuso ng mga insect, they have to sacrifice or kill 3 million Chinese. Hindi na bali. But the new freedom of Indonesia is watered by the blood of 3 million Chinese because of Chinese gluttony, Chinese greed. Kadalo, gipatay sa mga Indonesian, 3 million. So, the progress of Indonesia today stands on the blood of 3 million Chinese gluttons. People who are too greedy, mga dalo, mga kawatan. Now, ang Filipinas, ano bang binayad natin aside from 2 million? Before that, oh my God, I don't know if I have some pictures here. Yan, mga Filipinos. More than half of the Philippines. Lumaban tayo para magkaroon ng kalayaan pero hindi natin nakuha. Sa mata ni Jehovah, hindi sapat yung about 8 million lives ng Filipinos. Blood, sweat, and tears poured into the Philippine soil that we may be free. This is a river of bones of Filipinos who died, hoping that they will be free. Hindi sapat. Sa pananaw ng Jehovah, hindi sapat yung 8 million lives. Ito, yan, mga buto ng mga Pilipinong pinatay ng mga Amerikano. Hindi sapat. Hindi sapat. But eventually, because hindi rin komportable yung mga Amerikano na nagkanamatay mga Pilipino at ayaw nilang masakop forever, nagkaroon tayong independence on July 4, 1943, kapalit ng tanggalin yung citizenship ng 20 million Filipinos. Yung binayaran natin yan. Lahat-lahat yung namatay dito sa lupa na ito. If you walk around the Philippines and you dig maybe 1 inch deeper, the soil under your feet, and the blood, sweat, and tears of the Filipino people who fought and died in some dark nights of battle that you and I may be free. But we have forgotten that. After more than 500,000 years of sufferings, dehumanization, torture, abuse by Spain, by America, by Japan, by China, we have forgotten ourselves. We have lost under layers and layers and layers of foreign influences. We have lost ourselves and we do not know ourselves anymore. That's why today, we are under China. But we are trying to deny that. We are in the psychological process of denial. We are saying we are free, we are free, we are free. We are not free. You are not free. This country is owned by China, controlled by China, supervised by China, used by China, abused by China, and you are slaves of China. Cargador, barbero, cocinero, cocinera, civil guards, whatever, security guards. Yun, mga sulugoon mo sa insik. But you are on a stage of denial. You don't accept this reality. But you are slaves of China. This country is economically under the control of China. And if you want to be free from it, you have to pay for it. You have to fight for it. You have to march, fight, go to war if you have to. Shed blood if you have to. Millions of lives must be sacrificed on the altar of freedom and liberty and democracy if you want to. And I think tonight, my duty is to remind you that freedom is not free. Freedom from lockdowns, freedom from COVID, freedom from everything that's making life hard for you, you have to pay for it. You understand that? In my personal capacity, nung nilalait nyo ako, na nuisance, whatever, na may siraulo, I myself try to pay for it. I risk my life too many times. Na sana kayo, na maliit ang pagtingin sa akin, lumiligaya. Sana freedom the flag of Philippine freedom will forever wave proudly in the skies, in the blue skies of this country. I was among those who fought so hard for this country. I'm still fighting for this country. As a student leader, I joined and marched. I organized more or less 40 public demonstrations in protest against the abuses of corrupt people, against the abuses of China, against the abuses of politicians, against the abuses of satanic pastors and priests. I fought. I led about 40 marches in the Philippines. And even in Davao, I led a march for the MNLF. When Ms. Wari was hiding because of the siege in Zamboanga, I led the MNLF. Nalimutan nyo mga MNLF na nagtago yung leader ninyo. Ako ang leader doon sa Davao. Kasi ayaw kong apihin kayo. Mahal ko kayo. Wallahu Akbar! Yan. Ito sa baba. Nag-leader akong march doon sa Davao for freedom and democracy. Yun ang, as a person, nagbayad ako sa inyo maski hindi nyo alam. Maski sabi nyo ako ulol, siraulo, nuisance. Nagbayad ako, nagsakripisyo ako hoping na maski hindi ninyo alam, you will enjoy freedom and democracy forever. Dito sa Manila, I led about maybe 6 to 10 kilometer long march for freedom. That's on record. You check the newspapers. Long march from the World Trade Center to Quirino Grandstand. I led this march. Binayaran ko in my personal capacity, hoping that the Filipinos don't have to do that. I came back to this country because I said to myself, if one more life is needed to save the motherland, I want that life to be mine. I want my people to be free, to enjoy happy and free, cavorting in the highways of my country. I wanted that life to be mine. So I marched. I led the march again. From 2003 to 2004, nag-march na naman ako 2004. Yan. 2002 pala yun, then 2004. Dalawang march. Very long march. Under the rain. Nabali yung mga saka ng mga kahoy. Natumba yung mga kalaysa natin. We march under the rain. And they hope that at the back of our sacrifices, malaya ang Pilipinas. Then what are the other sacrifices I made na hindi nyo alam, na minalalait nyo ako? I organized an army, the USAFFE Liberation Army, throughout the Philippines. That is the army that I organized. And that is the same army that saved the Philippines from the grips of Japanese control and abuse during the Second World War. That is the USAFFE, and I am reorganizing the USAFFE to save the Philippines once again. I hope you will support. These are the other pictures of the USAFFE that I organized. This is another march for America that I led along Dewey Boulevard. Yung mga sakripisyo. Pakita ko sa inyo, kasi marami sa inyo, you are bashing me. Sinisiraan niyo ko. Ba't yung ginagawa ko para sa inyo, hindi niyo alam? Kita niyo ito? Kasama ko si Commander Lahi. Libo-libo, milyon-milyong Pilipino sinabihan namin na kailangang tatayo kayo, ipaglaban ang kalayaan, ipaglaban ang Pilipinas, ipaglaban ang kinabukasan ng mga anak. Yan, napakaraming tao yan. Mga followers yan ni Commander Lahi na kung saan ako nagsalita. Yan. Nakita nyo yan? Yun ang effort ng isang taong sinabi ninyo may sirang ulo. Kayong walang sirang ulo, anong ginawa nyo? Ha? Sabihin nyo sa akin, magprakatay. Kayong walang sira ng ulo, anong ginawa nyo? Then one day, I went to America para makatulong sa inyo. I filed a bill in the United States Congress. I, Attorney Eli Velisla Pamatong, I filed a bill, a law to restore the American citizenship of the Filipinos. This one. I was about to be granted a hearing before the lower house, but the Filipino lawyers who were envious of me blocked the opportunity. This is me and Congressman Gilman of the United States nag-usap. This is Congressman Gilman of the United States. Kaibigan-kaibig kong tumulong sana sa atin. And what more did I do? I went around America. I went around from state to state, from city to city, asking for support, help from the Filipino community. But they turned deaf ears. Hindi tumulong sa aking Filipino community. Umiikot ako sa Amerika. One day, I led, and I'm proud to say this, you can check the record, the longest Filipino civil rights march across Washington, D.C., from the Washington Monument to the White House. Pamatong, Eli Venislao Pamatong. I led the longest march. From the Washington Monument to the White House, I led that march for you, not for me, hoping that our American citizenship will be restored and you will live forever in freedom, free from Chinese control. This is another photo of that march which I led in Washington, D.C., America. Right? These are the people that attended during the march. And then one day, after I led a march in Washington, D.C., I led another march across Manhattan City, New York. I led the first and the longest Filipino march across Manhattan City in New York. Tingnan niyo mabuti. You can check that in the records. It is a part of human history, Filipino history. Para sa inyo na nagtawag sa akin, sira ang ulo ko. Ito, mga photo sa New York. Nagsalita ako sa New York. Nag-march ako. Libo-libo ka mga Filipinong sumama sa akin. But it was not enough. In spite of that, hindi pa rin nabalik ang citizenship. Kaya nga hanggang ngayon, lumalaban pa rin ako. Maski binawad, bale, wala niyo ang efforts ko. Yun, ang picture ng march. Then, para talagang malaman natin kung citizen ba tayo kung hindi, ito pang dagdag. I traveled throughout the United States. Through the snow, the roads, highways full of snow. Nag-travel ako alone with my bodyguard. Ito, I walk on the snow. Napakalamig. Fighting for you in America. That's, the white there is no. Fighting for you in the courts of America. I spoke from one community to the other in America. Fighting for you. Akong sinisira ninyo. One day, I spoke before you in the American courts. The American circuit courts. I spoke for you then. I fought for you in the streets, throughout the states, in the universities of America. I spoke in the universities of America, and I fought for you before the courtrooms of America, hoping that you will regain your American citizenship. Then I spoke for you before the United Nations, General Assembly, in the hope that you will regain your American freedom and you will be free from Chinese control here in the Philippines. Sinasabi ko yan kasi baka magtanong kayo, sino ba ito si Pamatong? Walang kwenta yung family name Pamatong. Bakit hindi pala Jones yung family name dyan? Sino ba itong tarantadong Pamatong na itong ulol na ito? Yeah? That is Eli Verislao Pamatong. All my life, from 18 years old to this point, I am fighting for you. Alone. Well, there are people helping me. There are still thousands of USAFFE members are helping me. Doon lumalamig na dahil kulang sa pera. Yung pera talaga ang problema natin. Right? That is the problem. So, my friends, I fought for you. I fought even for a friend, Miswari. I gambled my life for Miswari at the torture chambers. In Kuala Lumpur to rescue him from the torture chambers of Malaysia. I suffered in the torture chambers of Malaysia in 1972. During my crusade to save this country from the Marcos dictatorship, I suffered. I was tortured in the torture chambers of Malaysia. I paid so much. Ang problema lang yung kaibigan kong si Miswari na na-save yung buhay sa efforts ko. Wala. I think naging tuta ni Duterte. Binayaran siguro billion. Now, what I have done so far, what I have done, what you have done, what we have done for the freedom of the Filipino people, hindi sapat pala. Kailangan magsakripisyo tayo ulit. Yung 2 million lives na binuhos natin during the Second World War, hindi pala yun sapat. Yung personal sacrifices na ginawa ko, hindi pala yun sapat. Nakulong ako more or less 5 times sa Pilipinas. Nakulong ako. Abroad, nakulong ako 2 times. Hindi pala sapat yun. I think we need more sacrifices. To deserve freedom and liberty and democracy, we need to pay some more. Because what we have paid so far is not enough to have a corruption-free Philippines. How much are we going to pay? How much are you going to pay for freedom and democracy? Kayo, nakinig sa akin. Ilan bang ibayad ninyo para magkaroon tayong kalayaan? Hindi libreng kalayaan, babayaran mo yan in terms of life, sweat, and tears, and blood. I hope it will not be millions of lives. And ilan ba ang kailangan nyo? Are you willing to pay for your freedom? Ladies and gentlemen of the Philippines, my fellow Filipinos, are you willing to pay for a new freedom, a new birth of freedom in this land? Kaya ba ninyo? Handa ba kayo magbayad, magpatulo ng lugo, luha, pawis, at ano pang ipatulo para yung bagong kalayaan sa Pilipinas ay panganak ulit sa panahon? Are you willing to go far to enjoy more freedoms for the Filipino people? We have lost our freedom in the hands of China. We have lost our freedom in the hands of corruption in the Philippines or corrupt people in the Philippines. We have lost everything. What we have now is slavery, suffering, sweat, tears of the Filipino people na inapi ng China. Handa ba kayo lumalaban para maging malaya tayo? Tulad sa ginawa ni Lapu-Lapu, tulad sa ginawa ni Dagoy, tulad sa ginawa ng ibang mga hero natin para tayo ay maging malaya. Handa ba kayo? Are you prepared? Do you have the courage of the 40,000 Filipinos, the 900 Filipinos, the 900 Filipinos who destroyed the Chinese forces at the Battle of Yultong in 1953? Handa ba kayong lumalaban? I don't know. The answer is, I don't know. Maybe you are the answer. I want to know that on July 4, 2021. I want to know that on July 4, 2021. Kung handa ba kayong magbayad, magbuwis ng dugo, luha at pawis para malaya ulit ang Pilipinas. I want to know that. That's why I'm calling for a march, multi-million march from the World Trade Center or the American Embassy to the Liwasang Bonifacio to show before God, before history, how much, how deeply we love freedom. The measure of your love for freedom is how much you are going to sacrifice in the name of that love. Are you going to sacrifice your lives in the name of your love for freedom? For your children, for your children's children, are you? I want to know on July 4, 2021. Ang kaibigan ko, kailangan bayaran natin. Bayaran natin ang bagong freedom, bagong kalayaan para sa Pilipinas. Kung hindi natin bayaran yan, farewell to the Philippines forever. This country will become a province of China and the Filipino race will be removed forever, will be destroyed forever, will be forgotten forever in the memory of humanity. Mawala tayong lahat sa memory ng humanity kung hindi tayo lalaban. So sana po, tulungan niyo ako. Magtanong kayo, anong karapatan mo mag-lead? Well, I have experience. Wala sa inyong eksperyensya na mag-lead ng libo-libo ng mga tao to seek for reforms, institutional reforms in this country. Hindi kaya ni Lini yung ginawa ko sa Amerika, hindi kaya ni Lini yung ginawa ko sa Pilipinas, hindi kaya ni Trillanes, hindi nila kayang lahat ang ginawa ko para lang sana kayo ay malaya. I am the only one who can lead you for now. And thanks, Batala, for giving me the courage, the strength, the ability, the talents na magamit ko para sa kalayaan ng bansa natin. Before I close, I just want to tell you a very simple story. Every time I go to my office in New York, which was beside the World Trade Center, nadaanan ko palagi yung estatwa ng bata. He was a Frenchman who died to help save America against the United Kingdom, against England. May estatwa doon. Nadaanan ko yan araw-araw after I park my car. Dumadaan ako doon sa park papunta sa office ko. Nakalagay doon, tao doon sa estatwa doon, may baril, nakatayo. Doon, sa estatwa na yan nakasulat, my only regret is that I have only one life to live for this country. If I have more than one life, or I have many lives, I will sacrifice them all for the glory of man and humanity. My only, by the same token I say, the only regret of a believer is love, Pamatong, is that he has only one life to live. If I have one or two or more, I will sacrifice them all for the sake of my country and the Filipino people. I think I have said enough. Thank you and good night.